Excellent.
Is
Thank
now recording.
Excellent.
Got it.
Okay, I have a video to play for everyone just to start. So I did test it before, it should work. So let's see. Oop.
Hey, hi, it's me. I have this really cool shiny box. And there's something really special inside. I'm not going to open it quite yet. What I want to talk to you about for a moment is about surprise. If there weren't a box and there was just the thing, it wouldn't be a surprise. And there's something really delightful about surprises. Like jokes, things that are funny. There tends to be an element of surprise. I didn't expect that. Well, here's what you weren't expecting. The date and time aren't wrong. That's when I'm recording this. Today, while you're watching this, well, when this is being broadcast, it's the 14th of January and it's the regular Saturday service. I'm not available to do it, so I have a friend doing it for me. And that's the surprise. Surprise. You might have feelings about that, and that's perfectly fine. Of course you should have feelings. You were expecting this guy, but it's not me today. It's my very dear friend, Hugh. And Hugh's going to run a service. And the thing is, the service is never really about me, and it's not really going to be about Hugh. It's about the community, and the community is still here as long as you're here. So stick around. And I'm delighted to hand this over to Hugh. And also thanks to Maria for handling tech. And thanks to the Wednesday group for helping me make all this work. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Brian. Surprise, everyone.
Yay! Yay!
Wonderful.
It is a delight. It's a joy to be with you today, truly. I want to say welcome to you to Saturday service. Brian's already welcomed you. I'd like to welcome you also. Welcome to those of you who consider yourselves young, to those of you who consider yourselves old, and to those who think you're somewhere in between. I would like to say welcome to folks from all races and ethnicities and backgrounds. Welcome to all sexual identities and orientations. Welcome if this is your first time here, and welcome if you've been coming for ages. Welcome if your heart is happy. Welcome if your heart is weighed down with sadness. Welcome if your entire being is bursting with gratitude, and welcome if it feels like something's trying to suck the life right out of you. Welcome if you've got it all together. And welcome if you feel like you're in danger of falling apart at any moment. Whoever you are and whatever brought you here today, know that you are beautifully made and that you are welcome in this space. So my name is Hugh. It's what it says on my screen here. I'm actually living in Waterloo in Canada. I am a minister of a congregation of the Presbyterian Church in Canada. I've been following Brian. Well, I started following him many, many years ago when he did an interview with Mary Weems on a Canadian radio show and on Tapestry. And I thought, who is this guy? So followed his blog for many, many years, and got connected with this community shortly after it started up. So Brian asked me 2 years ago to lead a service, and I did. And I got to say, I was scared shitless. And then he asked me to do it again last year. And I was a little bit less anxious about that one. I got to admit, this is not my regular gig. So work with me today. I'm among friends, I know, and we'll hopefully have a meaningful time today. Even though I'm a minister of a Christian congregation, like in a way, this is kind of like a part of my faith community. Like I serve a church, but it's really hard it's really hard to feel worshipful. It's really hard to be engaged in that faith community in a non-leadership role. So in a way, you provide a real beautiful spiritual place in my life, because I can come here most Saturdays and learn and grow and be in relationship with you people. You are an important part of my ongoing spiritual journey. I'm not sure why I feel the need to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this anyway. And that is, even though I am a minister in a Christian church, I don't like to use the word Christian to describe who I am. I think there's a lot of baggage associated with that word. People associate Christian with right belief. Christian seems static. It's a noun. I like to describe myself as a Jesus follower, or somebody who's trying to follow Jesus, because that implies action. It implies not belief, but a way of living, a lifestyle. And so I'm more comfortable with referring to myself as a Jesus follower. But I don't just follow Jesus. I also follow the Buddha, and I follow mystics, and I follow artists and poets from over the millennia. There have been so many wise people. Jesus is one of those wise people, and Jesus happens to be my spiritual mother tongue, which is why I'm still connected with the Christian church. So I come to ROTB because I love hanging out with you, and I always leave with a nugget. Every week I leave with a nugget, something to think about. And it's funny, I often come back to the tools that we've learned over the years. And one of the tools I've been thinking about lately is the 5 elements of the spiritual life. And I'm having trouble. There we go. I'm having trouble. I don't have all Brian's technology, so I'm having trouble with all of the screen work today. But we're going to review the 5 elements of the spiritual life. Now, I'm not going to be able to see you, but I would like for you to just unmute yourselves and talk out loud. What are the 5 elements of the spiritual life? Anyone remember one of them?
Yeah.
Hierarchy of values.
Hierarchy of values. That's under door number 1. Woohoo! Hierarchy of values. Anyone want to make a comment?
Questions more important than answers.
What's that? Carol?
Questions are more important than answers.
Under door number 5. Not knowing is better than certainty. Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not all about
Transformation.
Okay, I heard 2 things. I think I heard, I'm going to come to you, Emily, in just a second. Stephen, did you say something?
Yeah, transformation.
Transformation. Yep, that is one, an element of change and growth, maybe away from the ego into something deeper than that.
It's not all about me.
Ah, yes. Brian once said, it is about me, but it's not about me.
They're both.
That's the paradox.
Yeah, there's truth in that. Yeah, we are at the center of our own life, and yet we are not at the center of the universe. There's one more.
Infinity.
Infinity, the infinity symbol. Yeah. Connection to all. We're connected to something bigger than ourselves. I'm just going to let you enjoy that for a moment. Hierarchy of values. Our values tend to change as we evolve spiritually and socially and emotionally and intellectually. We're connected with one another. That's where I love the Buddhists help me learn about the interconnectedness of all things. We think we are independent and stand alone, but really we don't, and we can't. They call it dependent co-arising. We arise dependent on everything and everyone else. Not about the self, but it is. It's always a process of change, and it's about moving from a place of certainty and answers to living with really awesome questions. And questions can often make us, well, sometimes can make us feel anxious I think part of my spiritual journey is living with questions and not feeling so anxious of not being able to answer those questions. So this, friends, is why I'm a part of this community, is because you help me to grow in all of these ways. You help me learn good things. I hear your stories. I hear your questions. I hear your frustrations. I see your humanity and all of its beauty and all of its craziness. And I think that it's an honor for Brian to ask me to be part of this today. I think that teaching and preaching and learning, I think a teacher is just intended to help stimulate something that will hopefully make you become a little bit more open. That's what it is for me. When I leave a Saturday service, I feel a little more open in some way in my life. And that's my prayer for you today. So I would like for us to take just a few moments. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of words in our spiritual religious traditions. We fill space with words. And so I would like for us to take just a moment, a minute or two, to be silent and to be still. The way I like to do it, my spiritual practice is a kind of mindfulness meditation. And I sit still, I close my eyes, and I just focus on my breath. You might want to try to just count your slow in-breaths and out-breaths. But what meditation is noticing when your mind wanders from that. Like if I try to count to 10 breaths, chances are good before I hit 10, I will already have thought about something else. And that's okay when that happens in meditation. Meditation is knowing, observing when that happens, and then coming back to starting at 1 and counting the breath again. And it's training for observing what's going on in our mind and in our heart. Meditation is not having an empty mind, it's noticing when our mind wanders. So that's how I do it. That's not how you have to do it, but I just offer that to you. If you'd like to have something to do in this space to try to ground ourselves, to settle on into this earth and into where you're seated or resting right now, then you can just focus on your breath. So I'm going to count in my head to 60, and I invite you just to meditate and to allow the silence to be a part of this experience right now. So let's enjoy that. Peace be with you all. Come back to awareness as you, at whatever pace you need to. I've got an idea for us to talk about today. I want to learn from you in the same way I hope you can learn a little bit from me. I have a story to tell you. So when Brian started the session today with surprise, well, yeah, he surprised me just 1 week ago. He called me and said, Hugh, I'm wondering if you can lead next Saturday's service. And, well, surprise. Well, I got to tell you, my first impulse was to say, no friggin' way. That's always my first impulse. That's my default, is to say no. But I said, Brian, I need some time to think about this. Give me 24 hours to think about this. And during that 24 hours, I spent some time pondering why my impulse was to say no. I have a friend who proudly told me once, he's a colleague in ministry, proudly told me once, he never says no to an invitation to speak somewhere or to lead something. And wow, that's, I wish I could be like that, but I am not so willing. Like, my default is to think about all of the problems related to doing leadership. I have the challenge of coming up with a topic. There's work involved in preparation. Will I have enough time? I feel stress about it through the week leading up to Saturday, and I doubt my ability to handle things in the moment. It's like there's all kinds of stuff that can go weird and go wrong in the moment. So that's my default. That's my mind just kind of goes to those places. But during the 24 hours, I was forced to confront something that is a hard reality in my life. And that is, I think that I've got a little bit of echo coming. I'm wondering if, Maria, you can help with that. I think I figured out why my default is to say no, folks. And I think that what I'm afraid of is failing. I have a fear of failure. I'm afraid to put myself in a place where I may not be successful. If I screw up on a Saturday service, I'm going to embarrass myself, and it's even going to be posted on YouTube for everyone to see for all time. But you know, it's not just here where I have that fear of failure. I can be a real procrastinator sometimes, and it drives me crazy. It drives other people crazy too. And I heard somebody at a conference say something that was really insightful for me. I know people procrastinate for different reasons, but I think this speaker nailed why I procrastinate. And that is, people procrastinate because they are afraid of failing. And if you think about that for a minute, you see, procrastination is not starting something. And if you don't start something, then you can't fail at that something. So that's the little mind game that we play, that I play, when it comes to taking risks, doing new things. So this whole story around Brian and me thinking about why I'm afraid to take risks got me thinking about courage. What is courage? What's going on in my friend and colleague that makes him so courageous? What are the things that I'm really afraid of? What are the things that you're really afraid of? How can we become more courageous? Does courage fit into the elements of the spiritual life, which we talked about a few minutes ago? And if so, how? How can they? I got a quote. It's quote time. Can you see, is that the Maya Angelou quote?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not on my screen. Can someone read that out for me, please?
I can do it.
Thank you.
One isn't necessarily born with courage, but one is born with potential. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest.
Amen.
So tell me, what do you think about that quote? Let's just reflect for a few minutes on that. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Wow.
I have always thought about it like courage is a choice, but confidence is something that we grow over time. So we may not have confidence in the moment to start something or do something, but we can make that choice to be courageous even when we have fear or apprehension. And then with that continuing choosing of courage, the confidence arises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, courage doesn't mean there's no fear. In fact, there can't be courage if there is no fear.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
For me, when I step out when I'm scared to death, because I am scared to death to be courageous. But once I just sort of like do it, just step out, I feel more like I can do it.
Mhm.
You know, um,
Do you know what I find, Emily? Thank you for that. I find sometimes the anticipation of the thing, of the experience that I'm afraid of, the anticipation is often worse than the experience itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Any other thoughts on that Maya Angelou quote, folks?
In the world I live in.
So go ahead, Robert. I saw you beginning to speak there.
In the world I live in, courage is getting back up. It's for me, it's not the fear of the initial act, it's the failure, getting your ass handed to you, getting back up and stepping through that door again and again and again. And it's hard. You know, it's hard.
Mhm.
I was going to say, can you hear me?
Yes, John. Go ahead, John.
Okay. In years gone by, I remember a particular author who spent a lot of time talking about and working with encouragement, which is a really important element in this whole thing. You can, especially when you can encourage others. And that's a really fascinating aspect to the courage thing, where it doesn't have to be the individual, but with encouragement, support from others, that the courage can grow in those kinds of situations.
There's a lot of wisdom in that. And, you know, I'm going to switch screens again here. Hang on one second. I'm going to change cameras because what you've just said, there's a lot of wisdom. And that reminds me of this tool that Rabbi Brian has shot us, the 5 stages of mastery. Now, in some ways, thinking about courage can fit with this as well. You know, we think we can't do something, and then we're able to do it when someone holds our hand, when we're in community. And then we have the further on, the external hints, the talking to yourself until you're able to move to the having it come naturally. I'm not sure that ever happens for some of us. I think for most of us, when it comes to courage, we do need community. We do need, and that's why we have a group like this on a Saturday morning. It's so that we can encourage one another. Thank you for that bit of wisdom, John. So I'm going to, sorry, did somebody else want to say something? No, good. I'm going to move us on to something else. I read, there's lots of online information and books written about courage, but I read something that I found really quite interesting. It's by a person named Sonia McDonald, and she talked about the different kinds of courage. So first of all, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to take just a few minutes and talk about dimensions of courage. And then we're going to share some stories. I'm going to get us into some small groups for a few minutes so that you can share stories with one another. So 5 dimensions of courage. And I'm going to write this down here and hold it up in front of you in just a moment. 5 dimensions of courage. So the first dimension of courage, which is probably the one we think of the most often, it's the kind that hits the newspapers, and that is physical courage. There's my handy dandy chart there. Can you see that, everybody? Yeah. Physical. We're going to do 5 in this circle here. I don't have Brian's amazing technology. We have a sheet of blank paper here.
It's working.
This is physical courage. Like we think of the brave knight or somebody who faces danger or runs into a burning building to save someone, and they have the scars to show it. We sometimes say that folks who jump out of airplanes in parachutes, or people who base jump, that they're courageous. They put themselves in harm's way, either because they get a thrill out of it or because they want to help someone else. This is the kind of stuff that you read about in newspapers. When somebody intervenes to help someone they don't know when they're being attacked on the street or some kind of thing. That's physical courage. That's the one that is the easiest for us to think about. Another dimension of courage, I'm going to write it here and hold it up for you. Emotional courage. So this one is really hard for a lot of us. This is hard for me, I'll confess. Emotional courage is confronting your emotions in a productive way rather than in a destructive way. And it means facing your emotions, those hard emotions, those emotions that are part of our shadow that we don't want to admit are there, facing those emotions head on rather than ignoring them. We are masters in our culture of distracting ourselves from hard emotions. Our cell phone's in our hand, we get a hard emotion, and what do? We, flip onto YouTube or check our Facebook or something. We do it all the time subconsciously. We repress hard emotions, we distract ourselves from them, even when, counterintuitively, the thing that would be the healthiest for us to do is actually to acknowledge those hard emotions, even to welcome them a little bit, to accept that they're a part of who we are. That's hard for us to do. There's a woman at the church I served, I remember very clearly, she separated from her husband, and she said, I can't come back to church, even though she had lots of friends in the church. And I said, why can't you come back to the church? And she said, it hurts so much to be reminded of my ex when I go to service. And I got that, but I wondered, isn't it too bad that if her withdrawal from the community was doing her more damage in the long run than actually facing the short-term pain of being reminded of her ex, because she was disconnecting herself from the very support network that would have been helpful to her at that point in her life. And it takes courage, emotional courage, to confront the pain which is involved in being in a healing community. And part of I started us with meditation today. Meditation is part of the observational activity of mindfulness meditation. You don't just see what your mind is doing, you recognize the hard emotions in our hearts when we're meditating as well, and we accept them as a part of who we are. Meditation can help us confront hard emotions as well. So interesting to think about this emotional dimension of our life in terms of courage. So we're going to go to another one here. I'm going to write on my sheet. Oh, I don't even know how to spell this word. Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm making a mess of this, but you'll get it anyway. That says intellectual.
That looks reasonably well spelled.
Thank you. It's close enough.
Plan ahead.
Intellectual courage. The ability to see beyond the status quo and ask questions that might seem absurd or dangerous. How many times have I sat at a meeting and I've been afraid to speak? I've been afraid to put myself out there intellectually because I was afraid of what others might think of me. It takes intellectual courage to speak up at meetings. It takes intellectual courage to share ideas, to share opinions, which might not be popular. It takes intellectual courage to ask questions that might seem ridiculous at a first glance, but actually reveal some truth. But this also works in reverse. So we need to ask these questions of ourselves as well. When someone challenges me intellectually, am I courageous enough to acknowledge that, yeah, I might be wrong? I find it really interesting that we in North America have grown up with this myth of confidence in my own belief, my own worldview. So we hold on to that so strongly, doggedly, no matter what. I'm going to hold on to what I believe. We admire those people, they're revered. And yet, isn't it true that the courageous people are the people that can let go of the things they've held dear and actually acknowledge when they might have more to learn? Like that takes a lot of courage. Confronting our own intellectual limitations, that takes a lot of courage. There's two more, friends. We're getting there. And there's also a lot of overlap. This is just one breakdown. Here's another one. So we've moved through physical courage, emotional courage, intellectual courage, and social courage. Social courage is, well, yeah, this one is a bit harder, I think, for me to get a grip on, but it's the ability to stand up for yourself and your values, even when there is opposition from others. I think that if we're honest with ourselves, most of us can think of a time when we didn't have the courage to do something which we knew would make a difference. I think about my daughter and social courage. Like, she's 14 years old and she's experiencing peer abuse now. And gosh, does that bring back memories? How many times have I let my peers dictate what I do? It takes social courage to stand up for yourself. It's risky. It's risky to do that. And I feel for my daughter. That takes a really brave kind of bravery to stand up to your friends. There's one more, friends, and then we're going to have a conversation.
Hugh, I'm going to break in for a moment because you said you want to do small groups. So can you host me so that I can get those?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Sure. Hang on one second, Maria. Now I need to find you on my screen so that I can do that. Can you wave, Maria? Oh, there you are. Thank you. Make host. There you are. Good. One more kind of courage, friends.
Spiritual.
Wow. I just found this really interesting kind of breakdown of the different kinds of courage. So spiritual courage, maybe it can be the willingness to look at your soul and make difficult choices. It's a willingness to risk what you think you know and learn more about yourself. And that takes courage. It takes courage to allow your spiritual religious worldview to soften so that you can grow. Now, this might not be a hard thing for many of the people in this room. I suspect most of us are here because we want to be challenged spiritually. I remember when I went to seminary years ago, a woman said to me, "Don't ever change, Hugh, never ever change. When you go to seminary, they're going to want to change you, but you just have to hold on to your beliefs." And I know she meant well, but gosh, we grow physically, we grow emotionally, we grow mentally, we grow spiritually too. And it takes courage for us to let go of the spiritual religious perspectives that are dear to us and to say, you know what, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe there's a lot more than what I think there can be.
I think there's another aspect of spiritual courage.
Go ahead, Carol, please.
I think that getting close to God can be terrifying. So it's not what other people think. It's not even what you thought before. It's saying, am I strong enough? I'm not Isaiah, damn it, or Jeremiah. Can I really get closer?
Thank you, Carol.
Yes.
We're gonna split off into small groups for a few minutes. I would like for you to think just in your head now for a few moments a story of when you were courageous. Brené Brown talks about, she says that the root of the word courage is cur, which means heart. It's the Latin word for heart. And courage in its earliest form meant to speak one's mind by telling one's heart, by sharing one's story. And Brené Brown laments that there are so few places in our world today where we can actually share part of our story. And I think that's one beautiful thing about Saturday service, is that we can share stories here. So I'm going to invite Maria to put us into small groups, for groups of maybe 4 or 5, Maria, for 6 or 7 minutes. And I would like for you to if you wish, you don't have to do this. No one's forcing anyone to do anything here today, but to use this as an opportunity to hear maybe a couple of stories of courage. And you might want to think about what kind of courage it was based on what we've just learned. And if you take maybe a minute or a minute and a half each, I know that's not a long time, but this is just a practice ground for us. So Maria, if you could put us into small groups, we'll take a few minutes to do that.
They should be, okay, there they go.
Join.
Good, we're all good, Maria. Thank you. Bless you for that. What do you have it set for, Maria, time-wise?
I'm going to do the 6 minutes.
Super, that's fine. Good, good. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, Maria, this is, it always takes longer than you think. I have so much more material than I'm able to use, and I thought, I'm not going to have enough.
I know, right? So, no, you're good. You're good. So.
Thank you. I'm not sure if those in this space can hear, but it's nice hanging out with you in this space. Candice and Rhoda and Jack and Jim.
I'm just going to take a quick break.
You go ahead, Maria. It's just fine.
You're muted, Hugh, if you're trying to say something to.
Sorry, Maria. I was just saying, I really enjoy your Facebook posts. You've always got something really interesting and thoughtful to share.
Thank you.
I'm not a big Facebook poster, but I like to read what other people post sometimes.
Yeah. I don't do original stuff. I just repost stuff that sort of hits me, right? It was kind of like, oh, okay. So I do have the prayer list for today.
Yeah, and I won't forget that. I want to, this took a little longer than I thought. I do want to leave some more room for conversation.
Yep.
And then maybe we'll do that near the end, Maria.
Yep, that's fine.
I'll just hand it over to you and.
I like the 5 dimensions, right? It's another sort of tool in our toolbox to look at. So
Yeah, like it, I found that really interesting, and I thought, what a neat thing to share. Like it is, I mean, and there's many different models, and there's little, you know, some writers get into like subcategories of courage and moral courage and all. Well, you know, but I think just thinking about courage in a broader sense, like I don't think about the spiritual having to be courageous in the spiritual life, but really that's what it is, you know?
yeah. No, yeah, I really like it because it does it adds that dimension in terms of, oh, what do I mean by courage kind of thing? Like, I don't know how I'm going to talk about that, but yes, to be able to look at it like that.
Well, I just got a message from Rona. Rona's iPhone is dying, so she just said thank you. It's hard to manage all of these things on one computer screen.
Yeah. I have 2, and that's hard enough. So. Oh, we did lose her. Okay. There's just under, well, there's under a minute left. There's half a minute left. And then when I close it, then they get an extra minute.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Do you want to, are you going to do a second one, a second breakout, small groups?
No, I just changed it on the fly. Yep. I had a video clip from Brene Brown I was going to show too. I was just so worried I wouldn't have enough to fill the time, but I guess I talk more than I think I will.
No. You give lots of nice space, thinking space. So
I'm just going to share screen. I got one quote for folks when they come back, and then we'll just have some talk time.
Okay.
Now, this meeting that I'm recording, is that recording to my iCloud or to the?
I think it would be Brian, since he's we're in his meeting.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
If there's a problem, he can let me know.
Yeah. Welcome back, Jeff.
Hey,
We
Jeff.
lost you for a bit.
I had to walk the dog.
Oh, of course.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Was that like just around the house or outside?
Outside, yeah, really. Thank you.
Hi, Ann.
Every day begins with an act of courage and hope. Getting out of bed.
I like that.
True.
So
If y'all notice, I'm still laying in bed.
I hope you muster the courage to get out of bed at some point today.
We can hope, yeah.
I have to say that outside my window is, I think it's the 7th storm since Christmas Day. It's a atmospheric river. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's pretty impressive. A lot of my hometown, I live in Santa Cruz area, and lots of it is underwater. I'm not. And my home seems pretty secure, but I have friends in Boulder Creek up in where the redwoods are, and they can't get out of their house, or they can't get into their house.
Oh,
Nobody,
we send
it's
them
just-
good thoughts for peace and recovery. Rita, thank you.
Yes.
And-
How about first of all, I want to say thank you for participating in that. It takes courage to share stories of courage. Thank you for your participation. Any reflections on this theme? We could just kind of open it up for a few minutes of conversation. Any thoughts that you just want to say?
We had a couple of themes that came up in our group. One was that when we thought about the individual, the 5 types, often when we thought about something we were courageous for, it ended up being multiple or even all of those topics.
Not honey.
Yeah, there's lots of overlap.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
One of the things that I think about sometimes when I think about the courage is how in my own life, moving from certainty to uncertainty is both causes a sense of elation and freeing and anxiety and excitement and back to fear. And it just keeps going back and forth. Until I get used to the uncertainty.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. You know, it's like most things in life, like recovering from grief or growth of any kind, it is cyclical. Nothing is ever linear. You go back and forth and you go up and down. It's only when you have a point of reference down the road, like an anniversary of an event, and you look back behind you and you realize, I'm not in the same place I was. It feels like I'm just going around and around and around, but you're actually, like, hopefully the stock market on a good year actually moving up. You know, but it takes a point of reference to recognize that. Thank you, Emily, for that reminder that this is never linear.
Hugh.
Yeah.
Hugh, may I share this from Walkerton, by the way?
Yes, John.
Can you see what I'm holding up?
What does that say?
Groups by Pete Hine.
I can't read it.
Groups.
No, I read that, but I.
Groups.
Good advice. Okay.
What is
Pete
it say?
Hine was all kinds of things. Among other things, he'd like to do these little poems. And what you reminded me of is one, and the poem is Brave. To be brave is to behave bravely when your heart is faint. So you can be really brave only when you really ain't.
That's good. That's really good.
Wisdom, John. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Who wrote it?
Pete Hine, Piethen.
Thanks, John.
Google him and you'll find some fascinating information by a marvelous guy.
Thanks. Betsy, what would you like to share?
Okay, I just got the image of getting in a canoe and leaving the shore, and trust, the word trust came to me. You've got to trust the water to carry you, trust something and going with the flow.
Literally.
And I think part of that trust, Betsy, is trusting that you're going to be able to handle the conditions in the canoe. Like there's trust in you as the canoer as well.
Yeah.
And then the challenge becomes deciding when it's right to go downstream and when it's necessary to go upstream against the current.
Right.
Yeah.
And like this is a good question. Like we need to be discerning in what areas of life we want to practice courage in. Just because a mountain is there doesn't mean you need to take the risk to climb it. Just because you can put a parachute on your body and jump out of an airplane doesn't mean you should do it. It takes wisdom and discernment to know what dimensions of my life where do I need to practice courage? Where is it required? Where will it really be life-giving? And that's a question that only you can answer.
Right. One thing that the conversation that I had in groups was the courage of accepting diversity. And one of the things that we talked about is, well, when I'm in conversation or in a relationship with a person, as a friend or whatever, sometimes we may agree, sometimes we may disagree, and sometimes we will have to agree to disagree. Meaning that in my what I think is what I believe is that I may disagree with somebody else about many things, politically, religiously, whatever, culturally. But then, I need to have the courage to learn from that other person, listen to the other person, where the person is coming from, and try to think like the other person so I can understand them. And I may agree. Sometimes I may disagree, but since the other person has a value as a person, an intrinsic value, I can agree to disagree with that person, but then the unity as human beings goes above our differences.
Wow.
And that takes courage as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shmuley. Wisdom. Thank you.
Melissa has her hand up.
Thanks, Bob. Go ahead, Melissa.
Hi. One of the things that someone shared in our group that I really appreciated was that life is a series of courageous acts that we haven't even realized. Like, for example, a 1-year-old baby, taking those first steps are terrifying. And it takes great deal of courage to learn to walk. And so that follows us throughout our life.
Right.
Amen. I'm going to show you this one again, friends. This is not a joke. This is for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are more courageous already than we think we are.
Curiosity.
Every day begins with an act of courage and hope, getting out of bed. Thank you, Melissa, for that. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Want to do it. And speaking up here takes courage. It does for me anyway.
Yeah.
What you mean sharing in this group?
Mhm.
Of course.
Of course.
And that's what of course, and that's why Brian likes to use small groups sometimes, and I love that too. It's always easier for me to share with 4 people than 40 people. That's true. It takes a lot of courage, and that's why we do both of these things. Yeah, thank you.
Can I show you another little thing?
Sure, John, and then we're going to move on to the prayer list for the day. Go ahead, John.
I'm holding my hand a pencil. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
See what's different about it?
Erasers.
On both ends.
On both ends.
And written on the pen or printed on the pencil is, I have the courage to be imperfect.
Ooh.
Imperfect spelled with a U in the first place. Rudolf Dreikers wrote a book, The Courage to Be Imperfect.
But not with that
That's
pencil.
many years ago, and this pencil is probably close to 40 years old, maybe 30. But it's something that stuck with me a long time.
Thank you, John. You know, Brené Brown wrote a really good book too. She talks a lot about courage and vulnerability, the vulnerability that we experience, and the gift of making ourselves vulnerable. She wrote a great book called The Gifts of Imperfection, and she talks about that very thing in her book. It's a book I'd recommend if you haven't read it yet. Brené Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. I just want to say thank you, friends, for hanging out today. What a joy to be with you and to hear some of your stories and thoughts. And thank you for listening to me for this hour. I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to hand it off to Maria. She's going to share the prayer list, and then we'll have a moment of silent prayer or reflection for the folks named in that list.
Okay.
Thank you, Hugh.
Very good.
These are the names of people to lift up and send positive energy to: Irene, Linda, Carol, Joe, Ken, Maudie, Doug, Ray, Patty, David of blessed memory, Armin, Brandon, Carolyn, Porter, Flynn, Alan Boland, Greta, Sherry, Elizabeth, Elia P. of blessed memory, Wayne, Kim, her husband, her father, her aunt, her daughter, and her friend in Odessa, Rita S., Akira Ichikawa's family, Putin, Sandy, Jim, Karen, Bill, Gwen, Laurel, Carol, the Cook family, and Rita W. And if there is another person in our community we can offer light and love to, please put their name in the chat and I will add them to the list in the clubhouse. And for the people who aren't named here, but who are in our thoughts, we send them light and love as well.
Thank you, Maria. Let's just sit for a moment, and I invite you in your own way to offer prayers or energy or peace, whatever metaphor you'd like to use, to those we've just named. Let's remember them together in this minute.
Listen, Hanson on that.
Peace be with these people, peace be in these people we have named, and peace be with and in each one of you today, dear friends. I'm going to say good day in a spirit of gratitude, and I'll let Maria, are you handling the breakout rooms for the post-service groups?
Maria, you're muted.
I know. Sorry, I'm going to get them set up now.
Okay, super. We'll just talk amongst ourselves while you're doing that.
Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you.
You know, Hugh, I just think it's so fascinating as we were in that quiet time of how we each, the path we take to have arrived at ROTV is fascinating, because we didn't just all of a sudden wake up to this. It's been a long journey.
Thanks, Ellis. You know, some folks look for supernatural miracles. I think the miracle is in the very ordinary, and I think it is an absolute miracle that we, as such a diverse group of people, are together and in relationship with one another. I just think this is a miracle.
Definitely.
Amen.
You, should we be stopping the recording?
Oh,
Yes.
thanks. Oh gosh, I should be doing that.